All set? All right, the time is now 6:30 on Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. All are in attendance. We'll take a roll to open the meeting. Jim Franklin's an aye. Megan?
Aye.
Kalina?
Here.
Dot?
Aye.
Marilyn?
Aye.
And Brian?
Aye.
All right, so we have an open meeting. Please note that we are doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during the public hearing, please use the raise the hand function on Zoom, and you will be assigned a speaking time. If you are listening in via telephone dial-in, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded by Local Scene, and a record of this meeting will be posted on the Local Scene website as soon as they are able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Hearing none. We have an announcement. The Kingston Conservation Commission is seeking a new member. Commissioners are responsible for protecting the town's natural resources, including through the enforcement of state and local wetland protection laws. Those interested should reach out to the Conservation Department by calling 585-0537 or emailing Matt Penella at mpenella, PENELLA@kingstonmass.gov. Signing documents, we've signed some documents. Will the agent brief us on what we signed?
It was the Horsley Witten Group invoice for the 20 Marion Drive peer review and Apex invoice for MS4 support.
Moving straight to action items. I will now continue a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability for 28 Rabbit Road submitted by Steinbeck and Taylor on behalf of property owner Frank DeRico for proposed removal of hazard trees and treatment of invasive plants. The applicant has requested continuance to April 8th. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we continue it to April 8th.
All right, a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we will continue that to April 8th. I will now open a discussion on Conservation Commission approval of the purchase of 83 Wapping Road as conservation land. Matt?
So I'm either going to have to push this or just annoy you all in between meetings or something, because we have a document that council was reviewing for us, and he just got back to me yesterday and said he finds it inadequate, but we were having some back and forth on whether it really is inadequate or not, and he's not up yet. He's planning on being here for hearings tonight. So for now, I have nothing for you on that, although I do have an update later on, under updates.
Okay. Do you want to come back to this after Jay gets on, after we wrap up with the meetings, or you want to cross it off till next one?
Yeah, I'll put it on the next agenda.
All right, so we'll table this until the next meeting. I will now open a discussion on Conservation Commission support of the State Bill H965 S2721, an act restricting the use of rodenticides in the environment. Matt, can you brief us?
Yeah, we have two letters here, one to Senator Fernandez, one to Representative Lenatra, both of whom have shown support for this already, but this is just part of, Mass Audubon is sort of leading the push for a statewide ban on anticoagulant rodenticides. And we, as the Conservation Department, support that, and we're working with a local group called Protect Kingston Wildlife to try to work on pushing that change locally and statewide. But if the commission has any questions about anything, let me know. The ban would effectively make it so you can't use anticoagulant rodenticides across the state other than in emergency situations. So they always have that clause in there, that the horror story about you know, a school that has a rat issue, and there's no other possible, you know, feasible solution for it, in those situations, you are still able to use it. It just documents the process for that, and it's not just used all over the place the way it is now. It does have a high impact on wildlife. I've seen it myself, talked to a lot of rehabbers that have dealt with it. There was a study done pretty recently that tested red-tailed hawks that were in for various reasons for injuries and everything, and 99% of them tested positive for call them SCARs, those anticoagulant rodenticides.
I read something recently about that generally it's not one mouse that will do it, but it's cumulative.
Yeah, that's the problem with these, is they
Yeah.
don't kill right away. The new rodenticides, one dose is lethal to the rodent, but it doesn't kill them for quite a while. It sort of just slowly affects their ability to clot, and they slowly die. And it has a similar effect on predatory wildlife, where it starts to affect them, and the more they eat, you know, a rodent that has that, the more it affects their decision-making and their own body system. So it's
Right.
not always directly killing, you know, a hawk or an owl or a fox or a fisher, but it, you know, it does in some cases, and in other cases it makes them sick and makes them ineffective. It makes them hit cars or buildings easier, or gets foxes to get mange easier. It affects their immune system and all those things, so.
Do you know where that bill is in committee? Is it in committee now?
Yes. Yeah. And it's definitely getting momentum. We've attended some stuff at the State House. It's definitely getting attention. So if the commission has questions, we can discuss it a little bit. If the commission wants to vote on it, and then sign it.
Okay, so do we have a motion to support the letters as written?
I'll make a motion to support that bill restricting rodenticides.
Okay, and to issue the letters and send them?
And to do
and
that,
support?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. And we'll take a roll, a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Are you coughing down there? No. No? You all right? Okay.
All right, let's see, Matt, we have time for, to jump into enforcement, or at least start it. Do you want
We
to?
still have one more,
The grant.
the grant application.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. All right, so let's do that. I will now open a discussion on Conservation Commission support of upcoming grant application. Can you brief us?
Yeah, so we're applying for, it's called the Eco One Stop. They took a bunch of the environmental grants and put them in one place, sort of ease the application process. And so what we're going to apply for is the construction phase of the Lake Street Culvert Project up at Forge Pond. It'll be for DER Culverts Grant, Coastal Habitat Water Quality Grant, and MVP. So we are working on that now, and we have a letter here just to show commission support for that project. I'm sure you're all very familiar with that at this point. This is probably like the 12th grant that I've applied for this project, so if you have any questions, I can answer anything you got.
Questions for Matt? All right, perhaps do we have a motion to issue support for the letter and send?
I'll make a motion.
All right, we have
Second?
We have a second by Dot?
Yeah.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that passes unanimously. There you go. All right, Matt, we still have 5 minutes. Do you want to brief us on enforcement at 44 Rabbit Road, revisions to the enforcement orders and their deadlines.
Yeah, so the enforcement order that was issued at the commission's request for 44 Rabbit Road had several deadlines. One of the deadlines was February 1st for, you know, general site cleanup. It was the stuff about secondary containment on any gas containers or any, you know, hazardous materials, that sort of thing, trash, any of that. And with the snow this winter, we really didn't have the ability to check on that or really tell how the site was. I did confirm that they received the enforcement order. It was a little bit of a tricky property for that, but they did get it. The property owner just had a couple questions about that specific part of it. So I thought just to bring it back to the commission, to have the commission vote on a new deadline for that thing. Now, I mean, the snow is almost gone now, and it depends on where in Kingston you are, but to set sort of a reasonable deadline. Obviously, it said that anything beyond that date, fines would be issued immediately, so it was something that the commission was taking seriously and wanting, you know, good performance on. Just wanted to make sure that we offered an appropriate timeline on that, given the conditions.
Matt, do you recall how much, when the first snowstorm was? Was it 30 days? Was it 6 weeks? Because we pretty much had continuous snow coverage, that's right?
Yeah.
6 weeks?
Hard to say. It's certainly around and even before that deadline, you know, it was already there. So as to what, I can't really, off the top of my head, speak to how many.
Are you asking how much time we gave them first?
No.
Oh, okay.
If we think of unforeseen conditions and snow being one of them, if you can't get to it, you can't do much. So what I'm just trying to get a gauge of what an appropriate amount of time would be to extend without seeing it as an extension, just to give them more time to achieve what they had when the snow was off the ground.
I think 2 weeks is enough. There's not going to be much.
2 weeks?
There'll be rain and a light snow coming in the next 7 or 8 days, but surely that's time enough to do that.
Yeah.
That's
agree.
almost exactly what I was going
I
to
was gonna
suggest,
suggest
is 2
April
weeks
1st.
is probably fine, given that it's really just general cleanup
General
and
cleanup,
making sure you don't have any exposed containers of fuel or anything nasty.
All right. As far as the other dates are concerned, Matt, I think we had several different.
Yeah, the rest of them are still appropriate and they understand them.
June 1st, wasn't it?
It was June, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so would it be your recommendation to extend 2 weeks and look for a vote?
What is June
Well, 2 weeks will be the next meeting.
So let's say,
25th?
yeah, that's true, 2 weeks would be at the next meeting, so
next-
you could say.
March 25th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, March 25th, and I would probably try to set up a site visit shortly after that, and if we needed to revisit it at the following meeting, we could.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to extend the timeline on this single enforcement order, single item of the enforcement order for 2 weeks until 3/25?
I'll make that motion.
All right.
Second.
We have a second by Dot. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. All right, well, looks like we're going to move on to public hearings, Section A. Section A, Baker Avenue, map 58, lot 92-6, notice of intent. I will now continue a hearing for the notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single-family home with driveway, garage, deck, roof water infiltration system, drinking water well, utilities, grading, and landscaping within the 100-foot buffer zone to a BVW and the 200 riverfront area 200-foot riverfront area to an intermittent stream on Baker Avenue. The applicant has requested continuance until April 8th. Matt, do you have any comments on this?
No, this was the one that was out for peer review, and the peer reviewer had commented they couldn't assess the stormwater calculations or essentially assess the full project for various reasons. The commission gave them continuance to come back with more information. They emailed pretty recently just saying they don't have it yet, requesting more time.
But they've signaled that they will be providing information at some
I would
point, or are
imagine,
we just
yeah.
pushing just to push?
They gave the impression that they are working on it, so, yeah.
Commissioners, do you have any comments? Public, do you have any comments? Perhaps do we have a motion to continue until April 8th?
Make a motion to continue it till April 8th.
Megan, second by Marilyn. Take a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we will continue to the 8th. All right, moving to section B, Forge Pond Passage, Fish Passage, Old Lake Street, Notice of Intent. I will now continue a hearing for the NOI for the proposed construction of a permanent fishway at Forge Pond Dam under Old Lake Street with associated dredging to restore the channel and improve diadromous fish passage. We will now hear a briefing from the conservation agent. If any clarification is needed from the applicant during or after the briefing, we may ask you to respond. Matt, was there something on this one about pushing?
Yeah, and we have Jill Griffiths from Gomez and Sullivan online. She's the representative. But a little update on this one. We met on this about a month ago, and there were a few things that were outstanding. We needed a DEP file number. We've since received that. It's SEO 370973. They did provide additional, DEP provided additional requirements, but it was relative to whether or not a 401 water quality certification would be required. And they've already filed for the 401. So I don't think that that's anything that is going to be relevant. We were waiting on natural heritage response and waiting on the receipt of the 401 permit. They do not have either of those. Jill let me know today that the 401 program said that they were also waiting on natural heritage. So Jill, just seeing you last now, are you looking for a continuance on this?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. This is Jill Griffiths with Gomez and Sullivan. Yeah, we're open to requesting a continuance just to have a little bit more of an update on those outstanding items, if that's the preference, or an alternative way of proceeding would be to request a vote tonight and make the order of conditions issuance contingent upon receiving those last few items. So, I'm happy to answer any more questions that may have come up as well. I think the other item we'll need is and I think this is actually needed for Natural Heritage to complete their review, is a signed letter for the potential use of the town property. But actually, as I'm saying that, I think we decided that we're most likely not going to use that property, so maybe that one's not as critical.
And just to update on that, we also received, we required property owner signatures acknowledging the filing and acknowledging the deposition of sediment, and we got that from Wingate on that one side. So I believe the town was the last one that was needed on that, which would be the commission. It is commission property, where that would be deposited.
And that's probably a low likelihood that we would actually need to deposit any sediment there. It's not the preferred side, just due to slopes and proximity to wetlands and so forth.
I guess, yeah, I would recommend continuance. It makes the most sense, I think, in this situation. I really honestly, I would have no issue with the commission voting on the project as is, just knowing the way these typically come down from natural heritage. And I really don't see that they would find much issue here, or have anything that would be shocking as far as conditions. But there's also nothing wrong with just kicking this down the road 2 weeks and hoping that they come out with their information by then. Does the commission have any feelings on, and this is completely aside from the hearing itself and from this application, but does the commission have any feeling or concerns about deposition of sediment on the property at Silver Lake Sanctuary? Any questions about it or anything like that?
I don't have concerns on this one, Matt. If we have protocols in place, and I'm sure that that's part of what they have in here, in their commentary, they would just be followed and restored to existing conditions, correct?
Yeah, they've essentially just naturalized it. Should be fine.
Anyone else?
No, I read it, I'm good with it. Fine.
All right, I guess this comes down to, we could go in two different directions. We could either issue, approve with order of conditions that point to the need to get those documents closed out before we move forward, or we just continue to 325, which would be my preference. Continue?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, continue. All right, we have a motion to continue to. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you can speak. We'll open up to the public. Pine, would you,
Thanks,
if you haven't signed in,
Pine
please.
Squall with Jones River Watershed Association and a project partner on this. And I would just ask Jill to explain what the 401 might entail that would impact the order of conditions. I'm not really certain that I understand what DEP might, lay out as far as that's concerned. And I would also
Yeah,
like to comment on the town property issue.
Yeah, the 401 deals mostly with dredging issues and kind of conditions surrounding dredging. There's not a lot of overlap except for the work in wetlands, essentially. It's just when submitting an ecological restoration project for specifically under that type of project, there's just a lot of cross-checking of boxes. Basically, all the permits require all the things. So it's really, they just want to make sure that it's being reviewed by the Conservation Commission, that they agree that it's an ecological restoration project. Those are kind of the reasons that these go hand in hand. But I don't think there's anything specifically in the 401 that would affect the Conservation Commission's review. It would involve things like any time of year restrictions when work can't occur due to fisheries or other concerns, which we've already identified and spelled out in our timeline. Requirements surrounding dredging as far as DEP needs to be involved and kind of if things change and contaminated sediment is discovered or something like that, what to do with that, contingency plans, and so forth.
And do we have a timeline from DEP on that?
They're ready to issue, they have it largely drafted, and they can issue within 2 to 3 weeks of the natural heritage response.
Oh, so they're waiting on natural heritage?
They are. Everything kind of is just relying on each other. So yeah, they're waiting on natural heritage as well.
And if I may just comment on the town property. It's been my opinion all along that we should not deposit over there. For a couple of reasons. One, the steepness of slope, the adjacent wetlands, and also because, just to explain a little bit, the hydro dredging is, it's a pontoon-mounted dredge that allows us to suction off the bottom without excavating, that kind of thing. So you have a couple of people in the water with a 4-inch hose is what the design mechanism is. And then we're allowed to push it through another hose 1,000 feet and deposit it along the shoreline. I don't want to have to move it across the pond I don't think it's necessary, and I think it would sort of aggravate the whole process to do that. So I am very much in favor of just sticking to the Wingate side. I think it'll do best over there. I think it'll add to the stability of the slope and the maturity of the trees and all that sort of thing. So I'm, as a project partner, we're not asking for that, just to be on the record for that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pine, did you sign in? Pine, did you sign in?
I did.
All right, so I believe we were talking about continuing to March 25th.
Yes,
Do we have a motion?
make that
So
motion.
moved. All right. Brian, second.
Second.
Megan, voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We will continue to 3:25.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to section C, 20 Marion Drive, AKA 1 Royson Drive. Map 75, lot 31-1, request for amendment to orders of condition. I will now continue a hearing for the request for an amendment to the proposed request for amendment for the proposed installation of sediment forebay and rain garden within the 200-foot riverfront area of Smelt Brook at 1 Royson Drive, formerly 20 Marion Drive. We will now hear a briefing from the conservation agent. If any clarification is needed from the applicant during or after the briefing, we may ask you to respond.
Just a question for Mr. Brodsky. Did I send you the staff report on this or no? My staff report.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky. I'm a local environmental and land use lawyer, and I represent Royson Properties LLC. No, I have not seen the staff report. I was provided with a copy of Horsley Witten's March 3, 2026 peer review.
All right. Matt, pick up where we left off, please.
Sure. So since we left off, we've had several submissions. One was by, we had a quick update from Horsley Witten Group that was, I believe, more to review something that had already been provided that they hadn't had the time to review. And after that, we had the development team respond with an updated sort of answer for that, and then we had the final peer review, the final review of everything that was requested. So finally had all that. Final report was dated March 3rd. I'll skip past everything that we've already talked about. So the whole basis of this was the commission had three main questions, right? Does the project proposed in the amendment request meet the RFA standards of WPA and KWPR? Does the alternative analysis incorporate all feasible options? Is what has been proposed the best feasible stormwater management option, and that it's the least impactful to the wetland resource areas? November 6th update to the peer review report put together by the development team answers those questions, and I sort of changed things a little bit for conciseness. These weren't really answered directly by Horsley Witten Group in their final report on March 3rd. Horsley Witten Group feels they indirectly answered the questions through their comments number 6 and 7 on the report, but I just sort of put them in order here and tried to make them as concise as I could. Based on my review and that of Horsley Witten Group, it appears that they still haven't demonstrated compliance with the RFA performance standards. We had said before that proprietary practices could have been shown, other BMPs. They had said that the type of alternative would likely result in greater disturbance to the riverfront area, but there was the whole thing with not realizing that the road was private. Horsley Witten Group did say they feel that the rain garden is likely the most practical alternative once all comments have been addressed. But they did point out that there were still things that were not answered in the information. Sorry, I'm going through this in a really sort of convoluted way. I'm trying to hit on every point here while not rehashing every single thing we've already discussed. They had shown increased mitigation before as an expansion in the area of passive naturalization. So the plan that was updated October 16th of 2025 had shown 2,310 square feet, and the November 26th plan shows roughly 3,000 square feet, so it was increased by 700. From what I can tell, in order to satisfy the Wetlands Protection Act riverfront regulations, 310 CMR 10.585F, the mitigation area should be at least 3,600 square feet. That was partially from conversation with DEP staff with a little more experience in the Wetlands Protection Act standards for riverfront area, saying that your mitigation area shouldn't be based on an area you've defined of permanent disturbance. It should be based on your limit of work. So what was designed for mitigation was designed based on the area of the rain garden, not the limit of work around the rain garden. So it's an extra extra 600 square feet on top of what they showed there. So that's one way that this could be made to meet the standards is through that. I had comments based on both. Essentially, we had 8 numbered comments. Number 2, apparently the stormwater calcs and site plan still have one area of disagreement. That was pointed out by Horsley Witten Group. That had been pointed out prior in their January 30th, 2026 correspondence that was shared with the development team. So there were 2 elevations that were in the vicinity of the rain garden that they had said should be fixed in order to determine that everything with the stormwater calculations made sense. And the development team fixed one of those elevations, but not both. So that could be incredibly minor. It could be something that's substantial to the calculations. I have no idea. That's above my knowledge, but it is one thing that was requested or recommended that they update that. That was not. So it's just part of them still not having the full picture. I had no comment on the first or third. Number 4, applicant had no comment on the Horsley Witten Group recommendation that they confirm which subsurface infiltration systems have been installed. 5, no comment. 6, I sort of already spoke to that. It's based, the mitigation area should be based on the proposed limit of work, not individual structures or other disturbance areas. I do agree that mitigation for the bioretention area north of Royston Drive should not be necessary, as that's going to be converted from turf. Whereas the one on the south side, it's in an area that's, for the most part, naturally vegetated. It is, and I'll get at this, I'll skip it because this is my next comment. For the south side, the limit of work is roughly 3,600 square feet by my measurement. Mitigation area should increase, or the limit of work should decrease if feasible, but that's not likely. Horsley Witten Group also provides recommended special conditions that should be included in any issued permit. Number 7, I said see my comments above about alternatives. Would result in a greater area of disturbance in the RFA is not language that I would consider here, since some of the RFA is paved turf, and the area in question, while it may meet the definition of previously disturbed, has revegetated naturally. And while it is mowed, it still provides some protection for the adjacent resource areas. Avoiding disturbance in this area in lieu of increased disturbance elsewhere in paved or turf areas would be in line with the riverfront area performance standards. So I question why other alternatives aren't considered as part of the solution. Rather than simply a one-to-one comparison of them, are there situations where multiple things in tandem are the best feasible solution? And I'm not sure that has been answered. The Commission's question all along has been not only is this the least impactful, but will it actually work once all the infiltration galleries are installed, or are other inline solutions needed? Number 8, Horsley Witten Group provides a good idea for a special condition regarding a sketch for the O&M plan, simplifying the process of properly maintaining the features. Under recommendations, the applicant has contracted Green Seal Environmental to perform bi-weekly and weather-based site inspections and to issue recommendations or requirements for site upkeep in order to assure alignment with the OOCs. This likely satisfies some of the concerns that I raised in prior recommendations regarding short-term impacts to resource areas. There was special condition number 1 in the OOCs. States, accepting the work approved hereunder, no additional work or alteration surfaces shall be allowed within the riverfront areas of the site. This restriction, and it specifies the lots. This restriction may only be varied by the commission for good cause and only upon submission of an NOI or for an amendment to this order of conditions. This condition shall operate as a perpetual restriction. I had written before, the addition of rain garden would be significant to this perpetual condition, and the commission would need to determine whether it qualifies as good cause to allow further alteration. The Horsley Wooden Group also recommended that condition be restated in any permit amendment. But my update was that this is, in my opinion, the most important standard for this project. We have standards in KWPR and 310 CMR for work in riverfront area, particularly in previously developed or degraded riverfront area. Attorney Brodsky pointed out before that technically there's no requirement for an alternatives analysis for work in previously developed or degraded riverfront areas, which is mostly true. But there's nuance to that, and a lot of that came out of my discussion with DEP as well, where how is the commission going to assess good cause without determining that there are no practicable, less impactful alternatives? In this case, it's my opinion that we've not received a full assessment of those alternatives. The applicant's February 9th letter dismisses all of the potential alternatives Horsley Wooden Group provided, but as I pointed out before, I think some of the reasoning might be questionable, and in some cases the right answer may be to include multiple solutions. The applicant states that some of the alternatives would result in a greater area of disturbance within the RFA, but would they be significantly further from the resource area boundaries? Would that disturbance be to paved or lawn areas as opposed to mowed, naturally vegetated area immediately adjacent to the resource areas? So I just felt the commission doesn't have adequate information on various alternatives, including their potential location. We really didn't see a lot of information about any alternatives in this. Part of that problem was the lack of alternatives in the first place. An alternatives analysis too often focuses only on the proposed plan. You see things like do nothing, or pretty simple alternatives. The original plan showed one rain garden. Commission was told that was the best possible plan of action, and then it became apparent that calculations hadn't really been run on that and all feasible alternatives hadn't been considered, which led to a really long, drawn-out review process. I stated before that the applicant should show sufficient mitigation in order to meet the RFA standards, or the commission could deny for the request for failure to meet the standards. I just noted that the redevelopment performance standard from KWPR 6.04C4 only defers to the Wetlands Protection Act in lieu of the requirement for an alternatives analysis. All of the other relevant performance standards in KWPR for riverfront apply, including the first one, which states that the commission will not allow any activity or work in riverfront area without a clear showing that it and its cumulative impacts and effects will have no adverse effect upon any of the bylaw wetland values. So what does that mean here for this filing? In addition to meeting the threshold of being for good cause, the applicant must show that there will be no detrimental impacts to the resource areas from this proposed project amendment. Regarding performance standards, in the Wetland Protection Act, language closely follows that of our local bylaw requiring no significant adverse impact or effects. The section on redevelopment, which does apply here, saying the commission may allow redevelopment work provided that it improves existing conditions. It appears that the standard of 310 CMR 10.585F applies, requiring one-to-one mitigation, where the proposed mitigation area is part of the area degraded prior to August 7, 1996. That's definitely clear. There's no topsoil in this particular location on the 1995 Google Earth imagery. There's an area between 10 and 50 feet from the impoundment edge that maintains topsoil and vegetative cover. Everything landward of that is considered degraded per the definition of the Wetlands Protection Act. In the proposed plan, the mitigation area appears to be in an area considered previously degraded by that definition, though a portion might overlap an area not considered degraded. It's hard to confirm that with just aerial imagery from 1 year. But it is close enough that I believe here the 1-to-1 standard does apply rather than a 2-to-1. This is an amendment request, so procedurally the commission should either approve or deny the request. This should be based on alignment with the OLC special conditions, alignment with KWPR and WPA performance standards, the standard for amendments that the work should not be more impactful to the resource areas and their interests or so substantial that a new NOI should be required. To me, it's debatable as to whether all 3 of those have been met for the various reasons that I've already pointed out. I said it's my opinion the applicant did not consider all practicable alternatives. However, our peer review consultant felt that their recommended potential alternatives were addressed by the applicant, and they added that they believe the proposed design is likely the most practical alternative. Practical does not mean least impactful to resource areas. The Commission should understand that the area of the proposed rain garden south of Royson Drive is an area historically impacted by development, so allowing development there in the form of stormwater improvements could be appropriate. Regarding the 40-foot stormwater setback in KWPR, that shouldn't be taken lightly, but the existing system that's there does drain directly into Smelt Brook. So it's possible in this case you could say that's an improvement over existing conditions. If the commission feels they can approve this request with the appropriate amount of mitigation at greater than 3,600 square feet, I would add all recommended special conditions from the Horsey-Witten Group reports, and the commission should consider language that may help should the system not function in the way it's being presented once all development is complete. If the commission is uncomfortable approving the proposal given the unknowns or the really still incomplete nature of the filing, they may deny the request. Enforcement action at the site has led to the use of environmental monitors, so there's no imminent need of solution here. The applicant would have plenty of time to come up with an appropriate filing that satisfies the supposed planning board requirement and deals with all stormwater related issues on the site.
One moment. All right, Matt, so, I mean, from what I heard, and I did read this, and there's a lot going on for an amendment. Sounds like what we have is insufficient to say that they proved the case.
Yeah, I think there's enough there that, we went back and forth a handful of times with peer review needing calculations that weren't provided or, having things not match. There was a lot of language from Horsey-Witten Group saying that, one calculation didn't match something else on a plan, and we're sort of still at that point where, again, I don't know, they may be incredibly minor, those little inconsistencies that still remain, but beyond that, I just think there's still enough there that there could be a better solution. Mm-hmm. That's what I guess took out of this, was that there could be a better solution. I gave some language there at the end that said that this is an area, this mitigation is being proposed in an area that as of 1996 was disturbed. The topsoil had been scraped off. Since then, it's revegetated. It's not a beautiful, thick, lush buffer zone, but there is an area there that, honestly, as part of the orders of conditions, is already supposed to be, or not necessarily, I don't want to say already, but as far as the permitting is concerned, is supposed to be a vegetated naturalization area that hasn't been established yet. But, the area has been disturbed. It's not the best, densest vegetated buffer zone, but it is providing services. So you could go one way or the other over saying, like, okay, it seems like what's being proposed maybe isn't the worst thing. It's a rain garden. It's an area that was already disturbed. But is there a better solution? Is there a solution that does not encroach on the riverfront there, that does not encroach on the wetlands, on the stream? It's something that wasn't taken lightly in the permitting of this project, that nothing else would be done, that, it was considered to be a previously disturbed riverfront area, but that nothing further would encroach on it. So, yeah, I think.
That was our position.
Yeah.
All right, Commission, do we have questions specifically for Matt on his his update. All right. Let's open to public comment, and then we'll bring you on to address the applicant side. Do we have any public comment? Pine, please.
Thank you very much. Pine Dubois, 93 Elm Street, also with the Jones River Watershed Association. And I just want to offer some perspective here that is mine. I didn't come here prepared to talk on this, but this is an opportunity I see for the commission. This is Smelt Brook. It's called Smelt Brook for a reason. All my whole time here, since I served on the commission back in the early 80s, was an ambition to open the brook again. There's an impoundment here that has to do with a former cranberry bog where they built a reservoir in order to have a reservoir for the cranberry bogs. That's a restriction in this this natural perennial important habitat that leads to Smelt Pond, which is a very deep freshwater, interesting, essential habitat for the fisheries. If we were to open it again, we would have a tremendous success and a boon to the fisheries in the Jones River system. The dam that is downstream at what is below Foundry Pond is a high hazard dam and condemned by the DEP. It needs to come down, and if it were to come down, that would be the restriction that would open it all the way up, the estuary all the way up to Smelt Pond. I would ask the applicant, as well as the commission, to consider how important this is, and that this is an opportunity to ask the property owner, who has done an amazing amount of work without, I don't know the permits that were engaged in changing the site from a cranberry bog to an industrial site, that we start to do that now. This is an opportunity to do that, to bring back this Smelt Brook habitat and to improve the conditions here when the fisheries is really in a decline. Thank you.
I can quickly speak to that if you like. I sort of agree with all that. We do a lot of fish passage work in town, and this is definitely something that's on our long-term radar for reconnectivity, between Smelt Pond and the ocean. And perhaps Jay can speak to this, but for me, it always makes me uncomfortable discussing things like that when there's a filing in front of us. And maybe that means I miss out on opportunities for good work to be done and for applicants to be able to have options on things like this. But it just seems to me like that could be fraught with being accused of trying to get something out of somebody. I think in a situation like this, if those dams were to go, the jurisdictional area on the property would significantly go down. If there were no dams on that property when this whole thing was filed, you may not be looking at a riverfront area issue. You might have a 100-foot buffer on the edge of some BBW. So it's not without benefits to the property owner as well, but I don't know, it makes me nervous discussing these things during hearings about wetlands filings.
There's the public good, and then there's the work of the commission, which is based on the bylaws and the regulations.
Yeah, and I think it's that, so there's all sorts of things. So you need mitigation, right, for a project, and there's, especially for riverfront area, there's even opportunity for off-site mitigation. So somebody's doing a project that's going to be damaging to riverfront area. They don't have the ability really to satisfy the requirements on site. They can satisfy the requirements off-site. Those sort of things can be done. So, I mean, I think if an applicant came forward and said, listen, here's what I'm looking to do, here's what I can provide, and what I can provide is signing up for, reconnectivity of a removal of a dam or whatever, then I think the commission would review that and take the benefits of that to fish passage, which, I mean, fisheries is a wetland interest, as well as, you know, improvement of water quality and everything like that. But without having that, like, the commission suggesting things like that, we don't typically suggest anything.
No, we
Typically,
don't.
people bring a filing to you and they say, here's what we have, here's why it meets all your standards, vote on it. And there are some times where you get into a little bit of back and forth with like, well, you need to do more, this is not right. But there's other times where you just review it and say yes or no and pass it back. There's not a lot of suggestion done, at least in my time.
May I say one more thing? The only reason I'm speaking is to offer the applicant a bigger view, you know. That you ought to consider this, given where you are in the environment, you know, and the opportunity that you have to bring life back to that environment. But the other thing that I would like you to understand is that when I was on the MVP planning, blah, 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 this was a site where flooding happened during big storm because the culvert is too small, the culvert under Marion Drive. And there's a huge opportunity for the town or the applicant who probably owns some of that culvert to expand that and to start bringing it back. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to accuse anybody or anything or put the commission in a bad position, but we all need to start thinking about these kinds of realities and the constraints that the environment is under as a result of our failure over time to really make room for it.
Mr. Brodsky, did you understand Pine's intent of not introducing it to the project specifically, but just making olive branches between the trusted government adjacent watershed association? Did you understand what you were saying?
Chair Franklin, I'm not aware of a beef between my client and the Watershed Association. I can't talk about some future ecological restoration project. I just don't know anything about that.
Okay.
But if I might, just so you understand, Mr. DeMar, who would ordinarily be here, could not be here because he's away, and Rick Grady was not available. And I don't have the benefit of Mr. Pennell's report, but we have an entirely different view of where we ended up. Because if you review the Horsley-Witten March 3 peer review letter number 4, I know Horsley-Witten's here, I believe we had satisfied most of their comments. What was left over are minor issues that can be conditioned. So for example, Horsley-Witten recommends that the applicant confirm that the elevations listed in the HydroCAD model match the site plan. That's a classic special condition. These are minor details. With respect to the riverfront performance standards and particularly mitigation, I believe the Horsley-Witten spoke to that in number 6. And again, based upon the 3,000 square feet to be planted, Horsley-Witten believes that this would address the performance standards under 310 CMR 1058-5F for new work south of Royston Drive. So portions of this are redevelopment, portions of this are new work. I've never seen in a riverfront matter that mitigation areas be calculated on the limit of work. It's always the areas altered within the riverfront area. I just completed a 50-plus unit multifamily in
Mr. Brodsky,
yes.
let's stick to this, the facts of this. Don't keep reaching outside. Let's talk specifically.
So, Chair Franklin, I'm going to speak, if I might, how I'm going to speak.
Facts.
Yeah, facts.
If
So
you
the
talk about
facts
something
are, I just
outside of this-
completed
Nope,
another
sir.
riverfront
While I'm
project.
speaking, you will not speak. I'm asking you to maintain the facts of what we're looking at in front of us. If you say Horsley-Witten Group got something wrong, that's a fact.
No, sir.
Tell me how. I need to know how.
I just said
not that you
Horsley-Witten
didn't.
Group got it correct, and that the agent has it incorrect, that the calculation of mitigation areas is not the limit of the work, or I'm sure the term I think it was, limit of the work is actually the area to be altered. So the limit of the work is typically an erosion control barrier some distance from where the work's being performed. That's not how you calculate mitigation areas under the RFA standards. So I believe that Horsley Witten does say that we meet that performance standard for that new work. With respect
Let's speak to this, hold on. Matt, you spoke directly to this, that you worked with one of the states about this understanding, did you not?
Yeah, I checked with DEP on this just to make sure that I had complete understanding of this, because there are a lot of components to the riverfront area regulations, and that was their feedback to me, was that based on that standard, it's supposed to be based on limit work.
And we do have our own counsel, so
Do we have Jay on?
Jay's there.
All right, so Brodsky, you see what I'm saying? If
So-
we
so-
hear from the state, and
Yes,
then we
sir.
hear from an applicant, the state is who provides us guidance.
Sure, I'm happy to speak if Mr. Pinello will provide me with the contact information for the person he spoke to. I'm actually happy to answer that person, but if I might, so I believe that we've demonstrated that the project meets the performance standards under the riverfront. We've provided an alternatives analysis, which Horsley Witten also indicates is satisfactory and meets those requirements. That's addressed in number 7. Horsley Witten believes that this has been adequately satisfied our original comment as being not substantially equivalent economically. It's citing the riverfront standard for alternatives. I believe that Horsley Witten agreed. Now, Horsley Witten said that there are certain things that they recommend as special conditions, and we agree with all those special conditions. In addition, any additional special condition that you need to, for example, require confirmation that the elevations are listed correctly, or little details like that. So if I can take a half step backwards, I haven't lived this filing from the very beginning. I've only been involved at the tail end. If I understand correctly, there were stormwater issues with the site that resulted in an enforcement order. That enforcement order has been resolved. It was also agreed to submit a request for amendment to provide additional stormwater BMPs to provide further protection. It's my client's position that this work was not necessary, but was being done to address the Conservation Commission's concerns. We believe that the original stormwater design is adequate, and the problems associated with the site had to do with housekeeping, which we've addressed in resolution of the enforcement order.
Clarify something before we...
And you'll correct me if I'm wrong. So this has been roughly a year trying to satisfy the Commission's requirements that what were proposed meets the riverfront standards. We've reached the point of diminishing returns. We believe that it meets those standards. We thought that Horsley Witten agreed, subject to certain special conditions that were recommended and subject to providing some additional minor information. It seems like it's going to be impossible for us. This has been a moving target. It's a moving target tonight. I'm now dealing with how we calculate mitigation areas when I thought we had reached resolution with Horsley Witten regarding that.
Okay.
So
Let me ask you to pause before we go on so that Matt can respond to that point.
Yeah, just like clarifications that I don't think an enforcement order was issued on this. This came out because of site issues and the applicant wanting an extension before the whole governor's, free extension came out. And the commission, having concerns about site performance and stormwater issues there, said you need to come up with a solution on this. And that's when the applicant said, well, I need to have a rain garden anyways because of some planning board requirement. It is convoluted. But I think it's a little disingenuous to say it's been a moving target. I agree that my staff report does not line up with Horsley Witten Group's report in some fashions because I don't agree with, and I could be 100% wrong on the riverfront area mitigation portion, and you may be right. I may have gotten bad information from DEP on that. And if that's the case, fair enough on that particular component. Other than that, I wouldn't say that there have been moving targets. I would say that there was information provided by your client that was incomplete every time. And every time we were waiting on information so that we could get the peer reviewer going on something. So it's just, there's never been a complete review on this. And I would love to know, like you said, these are very minor things. To me, it didn't come across as absolutely a very minor thing, and I guess some feedback from Horsey Witten Group on that. Is everything that was outstanding in terms of that they did not provide, were those strictly for the administrative record, or were those part of review of the stormwater calculations? Because that was, what I took out of that was they wanted to confirm that things were calculated correctly. It didn't come across to me as though it was just a random number.
The one thing I'm going to add to that is that this was an NOI that came into the commission that we approved. There was a threshold that we expected to have been completed. There was discussion during that NOI about stormwater. The fact that there was so much trouble on site indicated that something was off. Where it was, I don't know. There was something off. So when we come back to it and we say, you know, we're sick of it, it's been a year, well, this isn't our design. We approved something that's an ongoing project. It got extended. We're all inheriting it, just like you did. I don't think I was here on the first one, maybe I was. But there certainly was a threshold that we accepted the design at, and it's clear that that might not have hit the bar that we expected to. So we do have to get back into some of these things. And that's why it's in front of us as an amendment. But the amendment from where we're sitting, where I'm reading, basically is saying that your team views it as law of diminishing return, saying that you've done enough. And what we're hearing is that we haven't hit the bar yet. So that, to me, signals that my openness to do this as an amendment, objectively, has come to a path where I have to say, look, I don't see the two sides coming here where everybody's saying, yeah, we got it, and we can move on. I think this was a complicated thing. I don't know that amendment, in hindsight, was the way to go. This looks like it's a little bit more complex than that. Maybe it should have been an NOI standalone. I don't know, but that's where I'm at, and I'm seeing two different things, and I trust Matt's judgment, and I understand the applicant's position, but I don't see that we're together here. And that's the end of it. Let's open it up to the commission to discuss, and if we have more questions from Ms. Brodsky, we'll ask you to address them.
Well, again, I was curious to hear our town council weigh in, and also we have Horsley Witten online, so.
Okay. Do we want to hear from Hortley Witten Group specifically?
Yes.
Matt, could you ask Janet to unmute and walk us through?
You looking for me to
Yep.
speak first? For the record, my name is Janet Bernardo, professional civil engineer with the Horsley Witten Group. Now, is the question you're asking of me and Horsley Witten at the moment about the design of the rain garden? Is that?
I think the specific question was about incompleteness, that there was something that wasn't, there was information, and there have been a handful of these, but I believe the last one was related to elevations.
There was some minor, yeah, and that, we really like to make sure, one of the things we do is to make sure that all of the calculations that are provided match the plan set, so that when the contractor builds it according to the plan, it will function as proposed in the design. So it's important for us as a number of people to make sure that everything matches. And there were a couple that didn't match. I do not think that they are big critical items that they're gonna make there are some times when those numbers are very critical. These particular ones, I think it's a rim and an invert of the existing catch basin. It's unusual that they didn't make that, that change, but I don't expect it to really change the final design or the final calculation at all for that particular one. We do like them to match, though. That's always one of the
It
goals.
should match.
It should match. We do like things to match. That's what engineers do.
I would like them to match, yes. Anybody else?
I think from a very high level, that anytime you're in any kind of planning, you have to have the right numbers and the documents have to be there. If they're typo, they're typo, you change them and you put them there. But the analysis is based off of something that wasn't right in the beginning. If you get it to the inside the building and we're coming from outer space, does it matter if you're 3 feet off of the basin? No. But realistically speaking, there's a need to be correct in what they're putting forward. On its face, I don't think that that's something that we deny. We just say, okay, let's
No, but just.
correct it.
Just fix it.
Get it to the point where we have nothing. Show me personally, show me the special conditions that have been discussed. Show me that you adopted it. Don't leave it on our plate to say what we can get. And if everybody agrees that we're 100% there, then I know where I vote. And if I don't get there, then I don't. But base it off of Matt's report, I don't know that we're there. And so that comes down to, a question of where do we go from here? So, more questions? Ryan?
I think my concern is that the last time we talked about this, we commented, and I specifically commented on how important a peer review process was for those of us who aren't so deeply educated and informed on these. It seems to me that the peer review has come in and said that the applicant has met the standards. Our commissioner disagrees, and that's the essential issue we're dealing with. But it's my understanding that the peer review agrees that the applicant has met the standards.
Matt, let me ask for clarification on this. I think from the stormwater design side of it, I think that that's the perspective. They don't take the onus of having to sit on this board and saying whether or not it checks off all of the items or not. That's on our onus as members of the town. So I think there's a little bit different where we asked them to review, and there was some things that had to come out of that, and I think that we got most of that math right. Maybe not all of it, but I think we can have confidence that our peer review got the math right. Or through some back and forth, we got there. Matt?
Yeah, just some clarification to how we could get there, because you're right? And that's there for a reason, peer review's there for a reason, to provide secondary review, provide information to the commission. Applicant has to pay for it, and it's part of the process. Commission obviously still goes to, the decision still goes to the commission, but language is important. Our third question is what has been proposed the best feasible stormwater option in that it's the least impactful to wetland resource areas? And their answer was that they felt the rain garden was likely the most practical alternative once all comments have been addressed. They said they don't like to use the word best. It's the most practical alternative. That wasn't really the question.
No, it wasn't.
The question, does the alternatives analysis incorporate all feasible options? When you look at, I commented on the development team's answers to the suggestions that Horsley Witten Group had put up. The things that they felt, given that the road was private, created other options for alternatives. I found the answers to those to be, in some cases, perfectly fine, and in other cases, questionable. And in Horsley Witten Group's review of those bullet points, they said, well, they answered to it. To me, that's not good enough. To me, if somebody's going to answer to alternatives, I want those things to be answered specifically to, it's their job to prove to you that everything there is not practicable, not substantially equivalent, not less detrimental to the resource areas. And again, using the answer of, in less words, but saying that alternative is not practical because it's going to disturb more riverfront area than what we've proposed. That's not good enough to me, because the riverfront area on this site is large. A lot of it is paved. A lot of it is turf. We have no idea where any of those things could actually go. Would there be locations where some of those features could go that would be the best feasible stormwater option and not be right up against
Yeah,
the
further
resource
away,
areas?
further- I
Not
mean-
require the commission to, you know, try to determine whether it's good cause to allow further encroachment into the riverfront area. So I think that's how you can get to a situation like this, is there's peer review on this project, and you have staff, and we don't agree. And am I perfect? Do I know every single bit of all of the wetland regulations in and out and been practicing them for decades? No. But from my review, I feel like there's certain things that aren't meeting those standards. So that's why we end up here, where after having a report that looks like the peer reviewer says, everything looks okay. I don't agree with that.
And I would just add, for the sake of context, this is a 22.11 acre site, so it's not a tiny place.
Meaning that there's other opportunities.
I was hoping to hear other options that would be further away.
Yeah, and I'll say, I think Matt hit it in one of his staff reports. I think it's not uncommon for us to ask for practical alternatives, and the answer is we can't. And that, we all know that there's alternatives out there.
There are
It's
alternatives.
maybe not your first choice, but sometimes we need to see the second choice, because it's written into the bylaw, right? that
And again,
we can
we're working
request.
off of the existing orders of conditions, which say no more work without good cause. So again, we just came full circle as far as, it's hard to quantify good cause.
And I think that this one's messy, right? Because
It is.
it was an NOI, and this is something that, you know, I think that the history of the site since they began construction shows or demonstrates that there's a need for more, that they didn't necessarily hit that bar that they should have been starting the project at, which brings us back into the situation where we're reviewing something that's pretty technical as part of an amendment, where amendments are usually pretty simple things. And so we're sitting here trying to do a lot of the heavy lifting through a public meeting, where I don't know that moving forward, we want to be jumping into this, because let them deal with it, you know, before they come in front of us. That's my take home for this. So, other comments? Do we have any other questions for Mr. Brodsky, his team?
Do you have any questions for council?
Looks
Well, I'd
like
like him to
Mr.
weigh in.
Talon is here. Could you ask him to weigh in?
Jay, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I'm happy to weigh in. Certainly, I don't have the skill set to weigh in on the technical issues. And, you know, I've worked a lot with Horsley Witten Group over the years, and they're certainly competent. I think everyone here understands that they're really good at what they do. I've worked with Amy, a little less with Janet, but I trust their analysis. The analysis, of course, doesn't end there. There are other facts, and then there's the discretionary items that you have that could go either way. I haven't taken an opportunity, and I'm not exactly sure exactly where the dividing line would be between a very raw technical review and something that would be more in the realm of a discretionary item for the commission. I am mindful of the fact that in the event of a challenge to this, then the reviewing body, certainly if it's DEP, the reviewing body, they're going to be focused mainly on technical issues. So I'm certainly familiar, and I think we're all familiar with the fact that superseding orders sometimes happen even when we feel we're within the realm of our discretionary authority. So I think we should be mindful of the fact that our own peer reviewer has, in some respects, said that the applicant has checked the boxes. How we might deliberate on what's left after that is something that that we can think about. I do see in their report that they feel the applicant still has maybe some plan revisions to do, and I'm wondering if perhaps another continuance might be in order to get these plans synced up a little bit. Maybe Amy or Janet could speak to that issue, if these are plan revisions that they'd like to see so that they're matched, rather than having us, through a special condition, have them match post-approval. So I think those are some of the things that are out there, and I'd be happy in between sessions to evaluate what it means and what the realm or the scope of authority you have when there's kind of a facial satisfaction of things like alternatives analysis, but the commission wants a little bit more robust alternatives analysis than what the raw data shows. I'm not prepared to give an opinion on that right now, nor would I as counsel particularly make a judgment call at a public meeting on that.
Thank you, Jay. I don't know that that helps because, I mean, I think he voiced what a lot of us are feeling inside, where there's some things that are checked and then there's other things that don't feel like they're checked, and, you know, where do you go from there? What I did hear is that time may cure some of the concerns that are out there. But I'm also hearing that the applicant thinks that they've done enough. So what does the board consider their position to be? Do we want to give more time and see if they come back and check off all the open things, or are we ready to take a vote?
Just to clarify, is Attorney Brodsky done with it?
I have a few thoughts, but I've been already scolded once for speaking out of turn.
I don't think scolding is appropriate, but
I think
if
actually
you're
it
speaking
is.
out of turn, I will ask you to speak in turn.
Here's what I'm struggling with,
Yeah.
which is I'm very familiar with the very specific standards for work within riverfront area under the State Act. I can't do your local regulations. I was not prepared tonight because I thought everything was copacetic, so I did not bring my regulations. I don't think we could ever meet Mr. Pinella's articulation of the standard for alternatives analysis. So again, two kinds of work under the riverfront regulations under the State Act, which I can speak to. One is new work within riverfront area and work in previously developed areas that are degraded. With respect to new work in riverfront areas, you have to meet the no adverse effect standard. It's a mathematical calculation as to 10% and whatnot. And you need to demonstrate no practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternatives. It's not what's the least impactful. It's a very specific defined term in the wetlands regulations, 310 CMR 1058. And I'm not going to bore you, but it's an alternative is practicable and substantially equivalent economically if it is available and capable of being done after taking into consideration costs, existing technology, proposed use, and logistics in light of overall project purposes. And then it goes on from there. It's not what's the least impactful alternative, what's the best alternative. There's an economic component. If one alternative is substantially more expensive than another alternative, that can be excluded. And I think what the danger here is that the commission is crafting, again, I'm going to be careful here because I don't have your regulations in front of me, it's crafting a new standard of what alternatives should be considered in the riverfront area that I don't think any applicant can meet. What's the best? What's good cause? All I can tell you is what the regulations require at the State Act. I don't think there's any dispute that we meet that. Therefore, if we've shown no adverse effect and no, I want to make sure I say this correctly. Of course, I've timed out. And the reason I do this is I usually have the regulations in front of me because they're so hyper-technical. practicable and substantially economic equivalence, I think is the correct terminology. If we demonstrate that, and it's confirmed by your peer reviewer, but the commission is articulating a different standard, I don't even know how to deal with that.
Can we pause at this one for a second?
Matt, let me just go real quick, okay? Two things to what you just said.
Yes.
One, practicable doesn't mean, and economic doesn't mean the cheapest possible solution, okay? So I just want you to understand that. What you said does not mean that. The other part is, there's pathways to ensure as a minimum threshold that there is no impact or adverse impact that's built into our regulations. If you can't speak to our regulations tonight, there's minimum standards by Massachusetts, and then there's also minimum standards required by our bylaws. If our bylaws tell us that despite everything else, we don't approve anything that doesn't not do harm to the resource area, that's really what we're looking for. So just understand that those are the things that we're looking at. We're not looking at a moving target, and we're just saying, let's make it really hard for everybody that comes in next time. Let's move it a little bit further. That's not what we're doing. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'll just also say I don't think that my standards of review on things like this are particularly out of pocket or hard to get at. But from what you just quoted out of 10.58 on practicable, substantially equivalent, so which part of that particular alternative would cause more disturbance in the RFA satisfies that? Like, there were multiple instances on this where the answer was that would disturb more riverfront areas, so that's not substantially equivalent. And I've explained why, in my opinion, that's not good enough. So that, again, I've not come into this saying, this is awful, this is not a good solution, the commission should say no to this. I look at everything for what's in front of us, and I think that in this case, I can't say to the commission, even with the peer review that we just wrapped up, that everything here has been answered and that you're looking at the best possible solution here that meets all of the standards and the special condition and everything like that. I just don't think that's been done. Having said that, I already explained. Could be perfectly fine. Could be perfectly fine to put a rain garden in there. Maybe it will work perfectly. Maybe it will not be a detriment. I just don't feel that the commission had all that information in front of them.
Kalina?
I would defer to the peer reviewers' findings in this.
Doc, do you have anything you want to add? Are we ready to close and take a vote, or do we want to continue?
I'm remembering walking in the area and seeing open dirt piles and a lot of other stuff that should have been attended to. It tends to, the whole time we've been talking about this, there's been a lot of things that weren't done appropriately. And so I'm not ready to vote. I just am not, because I can't make up my mind whether this is appropriate or not.
Okay. I think we need to understand that, the burden is upon the applicant in all stance. If we're not confident that we're ready to vote as a group, then we see if they want to go for a continuance, and then we move forward with the continuance. If they want to vote tonight, then I think we have to vote tonight. So is it everybody's opinion that we should ask if they want a continuance, see what they want to, if they want to take another stab at clearing some of this up and moving forward to a more communal agreement, or if they want to ask for a vote, we can close discussions and take a vote.
Well, there was that small matter of accuracy with the elevation.
Yeah, that's something that if they continue, they could take another shot at. From what
It's just a matter of correcting it.
what the
I
peer
believe.
review said, if I'm close, I'm hearing that they think it's probably pretty close. So personally, but I understand your point, and I agree with your point. what do we want to do? It's on us, so, you know, our decision here is what we do.
Chair Fairlane, I just want to point out that in section 6.04 of your wetland protection regulations, you have a definition of alternatives analysis. It's identical to the state act. Unless a redevelopment project under subsection C4 below, the applicant must show by a preponderance of the credible evidence that there is no practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternative to the proposed project with less adverse effects on the bylaw wetland values.
What was the redevelopment?
Oh, there is no alternatives analysis for redevelopment. That's under section,
Mayor,
So again, one of my problems is I don't have a client here tonight. I was prepared, since we didn't think that any additional information needed to be provided, to request that you close the public hearing and vote to approve the amendment subject to those conditions. So I was anticipating a conversation regarding conditions.
And I apologize, I thought I had sent this.
No.
I don't always do that, but in this case, I thought I had.
I'm not blaming anyone. If there's frustration, it's the difficulty in me trying to understand where the Conservation Commission is coming from. Because from my view, looking in, and again, I'm an advocate, right? I represent, I got a project that the peer review consultant says, yeah, you meet the performance standards, and then I'm being told that, well, we don't like your calculations, and maybe the performance standard is different. I just wanted to indicate to you that your performance standards, at least your performance standard with respect to the alternatives analysis, is substantially similar to the state act. The performance standards for redevelopment, where the proposed project involves redevelopment of a previously altered riverfront area to a perennial stream, then the criteria found in 310 CMR 1058-5 apply in lieu of the alternative analysis performance standard stated in the aforesaid subsection C2C. So my understanding of the regulations is correct. I don't think you have I don't think you have a different standard with respect to riverfront area. Now, I do know that your bylaw has additional protected interests. I know that your bylaw has more stringent requirements with respect to buffer zone, but at least with respect to riverfront area, substantially similar to the state act.
All right. Megan?
I just lost my spot. My hang up is that we weren't given alternatives to compare this project to. 10.58.3, the applicant shall demonstrate that there are no practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternative as defined within the scope of alternatives set forth. Blah, blah. The applicant shall submit information to describe sites and the work both in the proposed location and in alternative site locations and configuration sufficient for determination by the issuing authority under 310 CMR 10.5. The level of detail of information shall be, I just lost my spot, I apologize.
I think that's non-redevelopment for that particular standard.
Well, he's,
And Chair Franklin, the commission will remember that Horsley Witten actually requested that we expand our alternatives analysis to consider several additional alternatives. We did provide that additional information, and again, in Horsley Witten's March 3 letter, they say the applicant has expanded upon the original alternatives analysis and has responded to each of the suggested alternatives bulleted above, dismissing each as either being less effective in capturing storage volume or resulting in greater riverfront area impacts, or being impractical or not substantially equivalent economically, or would not address the purpose of the proposed rain garden to improve the flooding conditions. Horsley Witten believes that this has adequately satisfied our original comment. And based on the applicant's responses, we also believe that the proposed design, once all comments have been addressed, is likely the most practical alternative to address this issue. So I just want to point out, we did expand that.
Yep, thank you for reading that. Matt, there was more conversation about that, and I remember reading the responses. The responses were dismissive of the alternatives. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of line for them to be dismissive, but for my review, if I'm actually looking specifically at each alternative, which I think I'm supposed to, I want to see the reasons why it's dismissed make complete sense.
Right.
And I don't think in this situation that it did. And I'm not saying that they're wrong in that those alternatives aren't less, equivalent. They're not equivalent or substantially equivalent, but I don't think that that was proven to the commission. That I think those answers were often dismissive and simplistic. And sometimes that's the point, is to say, no, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. So that was supposedly Whitman Group's belief. That's what they wrote. We believe that the applicant has, satisfied this by responding to all of these points here. And I just pointed out in my staff report that there were several that I felt did not properly answer, to why they couldn't be practical alternatives, in the way that the wetlands regulations lay out. And I've pointed out exactly why. I don't think I'm being capricious by pointing that out or attacking this particular applicant about something like this. I think that pointing out that something would be more disturbing to the riverfront area when the strong majority of the riverfront area on this property is paved or turf, then I just don't think that that's a good explanation for why certain things could not be a better alternative or could not be included in a situation where you can then show the commission, look, we are really taking everything out of this system. This is the best thing for the situation. You're not going to have any detrimental impacts from that. Right now you have a rain garden at the low point, which, typically you do see them at lower points, but here you have a situation where you have a rain garden that is very close to the edge of that impounded stream and right next to a road. So it's entirely possible that this thing gets installed and then is still a detrimental impact on the resource areas just based on not being able to handle what's coming off of the site. I just don't think the commission got all the information on that. You put things out to peer review, that does not mean in every situation that peer review is going to come back and you're going to be like, okay, great, we're done now, whatever the peer review says. I think in a lot of cases, that is the way it's worked out. You have peer review, you have some things you want answers on, you get the answers, you go from there. In this case, I don't feel like we get the answers. So it's up to the commission how they want to handle a situation like this. You either continue, see if they want to work on it some more, maybe they don't. Maybe you continue it for 2 weeks and they come back and they say, no, like I said, his client's not here tonight, they can't really speak to anything like that. And my conversations with Mr. Brodsky in advance of this were just, everybody feels like they're done. Let's continue this until we're ready to come to a conclusion on it. Unfortunately, my reading of the last peer review report didn't make me feel that way. And I do wish that I had sent this report just so that they'd had the ability to go through it and we could have had more of that conversation tonight.
All right, commissioners, I'm at the point where if I don't hear a motion, I'm going to throw it up for discussion purposes to continue till 3:25, let them clean up whatever remaining items can be cleaned up, and if we take a look at it at 3:25, we do an up-down vote on it and say, come back, or, okay, we'll let it go. So that's where I'm at. Do I have a motion?
Is that what the applicant wants?
His client's not here, so I mean, we're
Texted the
he's
client
guessing.
for directions, so I'm waiting for a response.
Well,
We're not-
client's not here.
we're not-
I'll make a motion to continue this for 2
I'll
weeks.
second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're going to continue till 3:25.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Right.
All right, do we want to break?
Oh, 5 minutes would
5
be
minutes, all right.
wonderful.
We're going to do a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 8:10. Back on.
On.
All right, we're back, sorry for the delay. We're moving to section D, 53 Shore Drive, map 39, lot 5, notice of intent.
58.
58.
I'm sorry, didn't have my glasses. You saw I was trying, right? I was trying. 58 Shore Drive, map 39, lot 5, notice of intent. I will now open a hearing for the notice of intent for the proposed construction of 2 permeable paver patios, 1 impervious stepping stone path, and 1 retaining wall within the 100-foot buffer zone to the top of a coastal bank and other coastal resource areas at 58 Shore Drive. This is the first hearing on the project. We will now hear an introduction from the applicant.
We have Eric Schumacher online.
All right, this is Schumacher.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me all right?
We can, yes.
All right. My name is Eric Shoemaker. I'm a professional civil engineer with McKenzie Engineering Group, and I'm representing Paul Walker, the applicant. I can screen share the plans if that's easier, or I can just speak directly, your choice.
I think you can share.
Yeah.
All right. Screen sharing here the plan set. First plan you'll see is the existing conditions plan. This is a result of an on-the-ground survey made in October of 2025. The existing lot is about 13,400 square feet or 0.3 acres. It's comprised of an existing single-family home structure, 2 sheds, bituminous concrete driveway, and walkway up to the house. The existing home is non-conforming due to side yard setback. This proposal doesn't propose any alterations to that. We have frontage and Shore Drive to the southwest, and we're bordered by developed residential property to the east and west. The Kingston Bay is located directly to the north here. So a limit of coastal bank resource area is located at the northern portion of the site. That's labeled by this blue line at approximate elevation 13. This was determined in accordance with the Mass DEP's wetland programs, wetland program policy 92-1 for coastal bank determinations using the figure for slope. The topography of the site generally ranges in elevation, but slopes from approximate elevation 23 at the street down to elevation 0 at Kingston Bay. So generally all the runoff that we developed by this lot is just flowing directly north to the Atlantic Ocean. A small portion of the site seaward from the top of Coastal Bank is located in zone VE for FEMA, and that's base flood elevation 13. The remainder of the site is zone X. So moving on to the proposal, you'll see site layout plan on sheet C1. What the applicant would like to do here is 2 permeable paver patio areas within the 100-foot coastal bank buffer zone. 1 patio area to the left here is 8 by 8. The other permeable paver patio is approximately 550 square feet and will include a fieldstone retaining wall. The permeable paver patios are pervious, so they won't count towards the impervious coverage calculation of this lot. The stepping stones you see here, as well as that fieldstone wall, are the only impervious coverage proposed in this project. So we have roughly 68 square feet. You can see from the impervious coverage table down here to the right, we're increasing by approximately 1%, 1.3%. We anticipate the runoff that's generated by this additional impervious coverage will be de minimis, especially since, the tributary area is the Atlantic Ocean, and, 68 square feet of impervious coverage isn't going to affect, the operation of the ocean. So in general, we believe we comply with the regulations to the extent practical here. And, as a single-family lot, we point towards the stormwater management regulations as being exempt for work on a single-family home. So we're not proposing any alteration within the top of Coastal Bank area. Our closest disturbance is 27.2 feet away. You can see by the dimension here to the retaining wall. And the work within the 100-foot will be just limited to whatever is required to construct that patio area. So with that, I think I can assist in answering any questions that the commission may have.
All right, thank you, Matt. Would you brief us?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Try to skip past anything that was already stated. So you have a smaller patio, about 64 square feet, larger patio is approximately 550 square feet, 1.5 to 1.75 foot high retaining wall between the patio and the top of Coastal Bank. As he said, they're planned to be pervious, constructed from permeable pavers installed over 1 inch of graded stone, 12 inches of crushed stone, and a geotextile fabric separator. I noted that there's no O&M plan or maintenance information provided for the pervious pavers. Once these systems clog with sediment, they likely cease to function, becoming impervious. That may be less concerning here, where road runoff is less likely to reach their backyard. But special conditions on pervious paver projects should include a requirement that the system be maintained enough to ensure functionality. The last work permitted by the Conservation Commission on this property was a project to enclose an existing deck behind the house. OOCs were issued in 2012 and a COC was issued in 2024, just before the property was sold to its current owners. There's an existing deck frame within the resource area of the Coastal Bank on the ledge behind the house. It's difficult to tell how old it is from aerial imagery, but it is visible as early as 2005. There seems to be no history of permitting for the structure. It was depicted on the approved as-built plan submitted as part of the 2024 request for certificate of compliance. We did a site visit on March 9th with the property owner. It did look like, and I'm just going to bounce through everything, that's the order of this. We observed what looked like recent improvements to the deck. It doesn't appear that it was enlarged. It just new surface, sides, posts. I've noted the commission should ask if future improvements to the deck are planned and decide whether any past or future work requires a permit. So there's a pre-existing thing here that doesn't appear that it was ever permitted, but was known about by the commission at least when they issued a COC. And that's just a matter of what's the threshold for requiring a permit. If you're replacing a couple boards, I would say no. If you're completely rebuilding something, typically I would say you probably do, but the commission can discuss how they see that sort of stuff. I can pull up some comparisons if the commission didn't already see things from the staff report. Property is currently at 22.7 impervious cover within commission jurisdiction. Obviously built before all the wetland regulations, so it does appear to be legally developed, but is already over the 15% max for KWPR. So as he stated, they do propose an increase in impervious surface, even though these are pervious pavers. So you are still going from 22.7 to 24% with no mitigation proposed for the increase. And we've gone through KWPR 10.05 a bunch. Maximum coverage may not exceed 15% of the lot area. The narrative does propose that pesticides and herbicides shall not be used within the 100-foot buffer zone, as well as restricting fertilizers to organic only. That's similar to the typical special condition that commission uses on coastal projects, though the commission does understand that organic fertilizer can still cause detrimental impacts to Kingston Bay. Silt sock is proposed for erosion control during construction. Retaining walls less than 4 feet are considered landscaping under KWPR. Any landscaping must be at least 30 feet from resource areas. This one is approximately 27 feet from top of Coastal Bank, meaning it may not meet the performance standards of KWPR 10.07B. The area planned for the larger patio does appear to have been maintained as turf since about the mid-'80s, so it may be legally permissible to build that closer than 30 feet if the commission decides that the property has been legally landscaped within 30 feet of the resource area. It's not clear which sections of this yard can be legally maintained as turf. And before I get fully into this, I did explain to the property owner we were there, like when you look to the left and the right, when you're on Rocky Nook and in this backyard, you see people with maintained lawns right up to the coastal bank. Many people have done it. He had said that the person they bought the house from was not able to maintain things, and things had gotten, overgrown over the years. But I explained how at a certain point, even if it was of landscaped origin, things get to a natural state where then some permitting is needed in order to convert. So there's an area of the yard behind the house that's labeled in the 2012 site plan as a perennial garden containing trees and shrubs that appears to have revegetated or naturalized by about 2019 based on aerial imagery. If you look back, you do see trees throughout the backyard in the 60s and 70s. The yard first appears to be clear-cut and converted to turf in 1986. Aerial imagery shows the entire yard maintained as open turf until about the 2010s when we have these perennial gardens show up. And then by about 2018, the beds have been removed. Vegetative cover increases in that perennial garden area until 2023. 2025 imagery shows the area clear-cut, which I had said we'd confirm with a site visit, but we did. And the property owner said that everything had overgrown and it was mostly invasive stuff and that it was just kind of reclaiming a kind of a wild yard. But I did sort of specify that things like that do need permitting. Similarly, vegetation appears to the front and the back of the shed behind the house starting in 2018, growing through 2023, and then significantly cut back in 2025 imagery. So we did, obviously, like I said, visit the site and observe that those areas had been cut to ground level. There's been no soil disturbance. A lot of the plants were described as invasive. I did confirm some of that. There was, your typical weedy, nasty stuff growing there among probably some natives. But the area, in my opinion, was still considered to be naturalized from a wetlands permitting standpoint. That cutting occurred within the 150 and even the 30-foot buffer, all of which would need to have been permitted by the commission in some way. So that cutting essentially removed all the vegetated buffer from this property, although it still has a chance to regrow, which has implications for infiltration and stormwater runoff into the bay. So the history of yard maintenance raises two questions for this filing. One, can the entire yard continue to be maintained as turf, or should that perennial garden area or the areas that were naturalized be considered naturalized per the KWPR? And regardless of whether the area can be considered naturalized or if it's just overgrown landscaping, the extent of vegetation removal would have required a permit. And question two, how does this revegetated area affect placement of the proposed patios? The larger patio seems to be placed just outside of the perennial garden, so may not need to be moved, but the smaller patio is partly within the perennial garden area nearest to the house. During the March 9th site visit, the applicant informed the agent and assistant agent that he plans to remove any existing vegetation on the site outside of the proposed patio areas and replace it with grass. This landscaping plan is not described in the narrative or on the plan, which instead states that work within the 100-foot buffer zone will be limited to that required to properly construct the proposed site infrastructure, including the permeable paver patio areas and the associated fieldstone retaining wall. And it says the cutting of vegetation within the buffer zone will be restricted to only the limit of work shown on the plan. So the limit of work on the plans only includes the proposed patio areas, so any vegetation removal outside of that limit should be added to this filing. During the site visit, applicant explained that the property was not well maintained before he purchased it. Previous owner deposited a lot of trash around the yard, including bricks, chains, hoses, and rugs. There's a lot of rugs and similar things laid out that turf is growing up through. The applicant plans to remove this trash, replace it with turf. Obviously the extent of junk like that is not desirable, and it's questionable as to whether some of these rugs or anything like that could have chemicals or something that runs off. It's maybe not. But it does, at least for now, maintain the property in a stable condition from an erosion control perspective. So I said anything that's proposing removal of that stuff should include a plan for stabilization and quick revegetation because the property does slope directly towards the bay, so it has a high potential for erosion and sedimentation. So put that, no matter what, the commission should add a special condition to any permits issued that the applicant is required to submit and follow an O&M plan or equivalent that maintains the patios as pervious in perpetuity. And it should also include the usual coastal chemical limitations. And then the commission should decide whether to allow the proposed increase in impervious coverage, as well as distance on that retaining wall. As Eric said, it is a relatively small increase, about 68 square feet. The property is already above the limit for impervious cover within jurisdiction, which is set for a reason to protect all the wetland interests. So any increase could cause detrimental effects to downslope resource areas. The commission could continue the hearing and require the applicant to submit an official variance request following KWPR 5.23A for that increase, as we have not seen that, and that would show mitigation. And the commission should also decide whether to require the applicant to move the patios based on the history of vegetation maintenance. I explained already about the positioning of the patios and the naturalized areas. And we did ask that 30-foot buffer zone to be put in the plans, which it now is. And as I said, the commission should decide whether the improvements to the deck are enough to require permitting. They can ask the applicant whether there are any plans for further improvements and request that they be added to the filing. And I think it makes sense for the commission to make a determination on that naturalized area. And at that point, determine whether those areas should be restored to a naturally vegetated condition with conservation posts or included as conversion to turf in this filing with mitigation provided, which you haven't seen yet. So a lot of this I wrote before the site visit, and at the site visit, the applicant did say that his plan or his hope was to turn the areas outside the patio to turf. So I think that at a minimum, if that's the case, I think the commission should see that and see a plan, see a variance request and mitigation and everything all together, which we don't currently have. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to open it up to public comment. Is anybody online or in public that would like to come forward?
Do I get to comment? Or do I just...
You absolutely.
I don't need school.
You can jump up at the...
I can remember. Okay, great.
Let me ask you, did you guys sign the attendance sheet, both? Okay. Before you start, just name and address. Okay.
Paul Walker, 58 Shore Drive, Kingston. So I just want to point out a couple of things. One is the landscaping that's there when we moved in was completely overgrown with like all sorts of crazy stuff. Impervious weeds, vines, prickle bushes, everywhere you look, it was just bad. The property is kind of, we didn't even host anybody this summer because the property's unsafe to kind of walk around because there's so many holes. And the prior owner, tons of little tree stumps. Apparently Rosa Sharon's like overran the property back in the day. So there's all sorts of little tree stumps everywhere that they had cut down. It's really not safe to walk around there without potentially rolling an ankle. There was tons and tons of bricks, and there's still, I pointed out to them, still a bunch of bricks there. I probably removed 500 bricks and brought them to the dump. The trash area was there. So what we're really just kind of looking to do is just build a patio that we can put our furniture on, and a separate one where we can have a little dining table on. And I just want to level it out and make it green and grass as much as possible. The, what do you call the garden there? The perennial garden is 100% 6-8 foot weeds that just grow tall. They create almost like a fence, but they're ugly things. I don't know what they are. But underneath it is still, the root network of dead roots is so extensive, you couldn't dig a hole there if you wanted to. It is just dead roots and dead stuff everywhere. And I would like to get rid of all, apparently she put rugs everywhere to try and suppress weeds. And now, I mean, there's a huge section that looks like it's AstroTurf. Another section that's black, it almost looks like black tar type
Yeah, it's
of.
almost like a like
Was
an
it
aggregate,
landscape
but it's
cloth, or-
also like a mat or a rug. I don't know, there's all sorts of stuff.
And then they're just all over the place. And I personally view that as, you know, I don't think that's good for the environment to have stuff that's been breaking down under the dirt. Where we situated the patio, the water runs down the side of the house, and it has a clear shot down to the bay. So the way we looked at it and designed the patio was so that it will level itself off, so that anything that's coming down the side of the house, which would come down from the driveway side, will, instead of having a clear path down to the water, we'll now have the patio with the wall there to kind of flatten it out, level it out, so that we hope will have less impact on the bay and what have you. So we're open to putting up perennial gardens where the stuff is. I just got to get rid of that other stuff and put in more flowers. I'd like to have grass there. I have no problem putting in perennials. You know, we're open to suggestions, you know, for that type of stuff. We just need the yard to be inhabitable and, you know, just to have a patio and be able to use it. I think that's probably.
Okay. We might have some questions for you.
Sure, absolutely. No, sorry, say that.
I would, any other comment from the public? No. Hearing none. All right, we'll open it up to commission debate. I'll just start just because I'm here. So just from the pictures, I see that the perennial garden area was pretty established in the grass area, not so much. At what point, it doesn't sound like they could even comment as to what point the grass switched over, but, you know, if there's significant roots that are there from the taking down, that's enough to tell me that there was enough time for me to consider it that it was renaturalized. So I think that's something that we have to think of because of the habitat. You know, putting the area, you know, it's inside that 30-foot. I think that we definitely need to see a variance request for that, some kind of offset for it. You know, to his point, you know, the network of roots from what was there, hard to dig, but also hard to displace from a coastal storm. And I think that we need to think about that. You know, he's talking about turf. Turf doesn't have that. So I think, you know, those are my main concerns here. You know, about, you know, what we can move forward with. But, you know, what's everybody else think?
Well, the roots, they're probably tree roots and shrub roots, and it might be easier to just turf it over and let them rot. The plants are gone. They will decay, but it takes time. And the water that's running, what kind of drain? I know you're supposed to have, like, water that comes down off the house, like the roof and all. You would have a proper drain in the ground to stop it. And
We
let
just
it,
have downspouts.
well, not just a downspout, but it goes right into the ground so
Bury
that,
'em.
say it again?
You want to bury them?
You're talking about dry wells?
Dry wells.
A dry well, yes, thank you.
Yeah, dry wells we see pretty frequently as mitigation in this
Yeah.
area because you have limited lot size for native plantings, buffer plantings. And I did bring that up on the site visit, that typically in these coastal situations, the commission wants to see a vegetated buffer between your yard and the bay. You know, and in some cases, as mitigation, we've seen some pretty thin ones, even just a couple feet, you know,
Yeah.
can make a big difference. In this case, I pointed out that this is a lot of ledge. You have the rocks coming out from where the, you know, the lawn area is going down into
Yeah.
the water. So you may have limited capacity to get that deep-rooted crab, but obviously it's still better than turf in terms of if you did have a storm
Yeah.
come through and calve things off.
Yes, sir.
Just to that point too, I mean, if you put in lawn, you maintain lawn, right? So you're putting pelletized lime, you're putting, you know, phosphates essentially
You
onto.
don't have to put lime, et cetera. I wouldn't do that down there because it's going
No,
to run right
that's my
into the
point.
bay.
If we let grass go back into it,
Yeah.
we have to expect that even if we put in a condition on it, that there's somebody, maybe not these people because they're here and they'll hear us say it, whoever comes behind or whoever they hire is going to fertilize. They're going to add lime.
You
And-
could try clover. I don't know if clover will grow in salted soil. I don't know.
There is grass there now.
Yeah,
It's not like there's not grass. There's a
Okay.
lot more weeds than
Yeah,
grass at this
yeah.
point. But it is still pretty grass down to the water. It's just alongside where the perennial gardens were is where the weeds just overrun everything. So
Yeah.
there's still grass there.
Okay.
It's a matter of, it's not.
but going back to the mitigation and which means that you want to make up, if we say, yes, go ahead and build the patio, you need to mitigate that permeable stuff. plantings of native plants. And there are sources, there's a new one up in Hanover,
Norwell.
in Orwell, yeah, and other places to find that information, to find the plants. On the coastal bank, to hold it from washing away. That's a choice that you would make depending on what you want and what they say is good for your particular situation. How deep should it be? I don't know. Since land goes straight down to the water, I would say quite a bit. Yeah.
And we've had similar mitigation plans in this area that
Yeah.
have chosen species that are native, that are deep-rooted, but that don't grow tall. So
Right.
they don't lose the
Yeah,
the
so you don't
view,
wanna- you
and
don't-
we've had conditions in there as far as how they can be maintained, so that it stays a natural area,
Right.
but you're not required to let the random tree grow up in that spot
Right.
and
You
become a
can-
hazard to your
right.
house and block your view and all of that.
Right.
But I think, and we should specifically discuss the deck out back too, the one that's already there, but when it comes down to it, it almost seems silly sometimes, like when you're talking about a patio, and it seems like a lot of people probably just go build a patio and not file anything, and this may be why some people say, don't ever call conservation, because I've heard that a lot in the last
all
month
say
or so. Everybody says,
Right?
don't call conservation. I think we can help save people time and money and exhaustion, but, you know, regardless of the fact that it's just a patio and it's good that they picked, you know, permeable, you know, pavers here for this situation, the commission still has a process they have to follow where all these things have to be checked off, and here they're not. So I think, you know, at a minimum, I think you need to kick it back to them to have another stab at satisfying the requirements of the need for variance and the need for mitigation and the need for all of this stuff to be on the plan. Because just the disconnect between, you know, what he stated his plans were with the turf and what the reality is on the ground and with the permitting, what we have for information in front of us, that doesn't
Yeah.
line up. And
Let's just speak to that, and then one more before we go too much further. So, for what Matt's saying is you're saying turf, and we're gonna be asking for a little bit more on the mitigation side, because you have some variances that you need. He can help you with that, but even if you were just going out to displace what's there, you know, the embedded rugs and all that other stuff, you're gonna be disturbing the ground, so it is something that you're within a coastal area. If you disturb it, it moves, right? So the sand runs down, you lose your sand, it becomes rock, and I don't think that's what you want. The coastal bank is something that protects you guys right now, right? And it sounds like a lot of it's rock,
It's all right, yeah.
but once it starts taking off the dirt, more and more of that dirt is going to go. So what we're talking right now is just that grass only goes down 3-4 inches. We want something that is going to hold it, like your weeds or whatever was there. Those are probably functioning in that ecosystem as something that's providing some kind of benefit to your coastal bank, which, if this is your first coastal home, you need that coastal bank to stay there. So that's what we're talking about right now. It's not whether or not you like grass and she likes, that's not what we care about. We care about, you know, whether or not we're gonna approve something that's not gonna be a detriment as we move forward. So you've got a lot of work to do. The plans don't necessarily cover everything that's there, and we're gonna ask you for a little bit more work on that, so that we can get you to it.
Just a
Then just the one last thing, that Matt brought up the dock.
I think it's technically a deck. You have
Yeah.
situations on Rocky Nook where you have these rocks where they didn't put in a dock or a pier, but it's a deck like you would have off the back of your house, but it's standalone. And I think they're usually pinned to the rock. So it's a situation like that.
I only saw 2 pictures, right? So from the previous listing, before it was made pretty, it looked like it was just a frame, and it looked like the lumber was pretty grayed out. Did you build the frame? Did you replace the frame? Because I need to know that before I judge it for what we need to do.
Yeah, so what I did was I kept the I'd say,
Footprint?
the planking on top is all new.
Yep.
The inner guts, I had replaced probably 5 or 6 of the 2x6s.
Couple of joists you replaced.
And then
What
the other
about
ones
the
I
columns?
maintained, and then I
Those-
did put in some additional, what do they have?
Braces.
Side ones.
Sister
Original
joints.
foundation stayed, the original post stayed, that you just
I did
replaced
replace
the
a
posts?
couple of the posts had to be replaced,
Okay.
but I did keep, I would say probably 60% of the materials are the same from before.
Okay.
And I was told by.
How is it attached to
Uh,
the foundation? What's gonna keep this from getting washed away? What was the existing, what?
Weight. Just the weight. Well, it has 3 cement post pillars that are on the front of it,
So they just put in little sonotubes on top of stone?
on top of stones
What's-
that's
okay.
secured to the stone, so, yeah. So I was told by Grady, when they were out here checking the project from 2012, that I had the right to repair an existing thing, and that's what I did. So it wasn't a tear down and replace, it was a repair of the existing to make it safe and usable.
Okay. All right, those are my questions, but if you have more.
Could I ask for some clarification, just on the mitigation? So as I understand it, just so we're not coming back here multiple times, what you would expect from us is a sort of landscape plan. We can retain a landscape architect and, have some plantings back there that would, support this area that's going to be, naturalized grass, as well as, stop and, at least slow down any sort of runoff. So a planting plan that shows something like that, and then a variance request for the 15% impervious coverage, is that correct?
So I think what you need is a variance request for the 15% impervious coverage, or the continued increase beyond that, as well as the 30-foot for the retaining wall.
30 foot, okay.
And it's sort of debatable as to whether more would be needed in terms of whether you're converting a natural area to turf within the 30-foot, that would probably also need one and need some mitigation. As to whether you need to have a landscape architect on it, that's up to you. In some situations, that's what happens, and in other situations, you can just define a square footage area located on the map as a naturalization mitigation area, and there are some pretty easy species lists out there. I could even kick some ideas back and forth with you if you like.
Okay, yeah, that would be
Let me
great.
just ask you guys, as the people who are paying, will you be engaging a landscape architect to help with kind of the?
We've already got an Egan Landscape out of Plymouth that's drawn up the full plans for
Okay.
us.
They're great.
So they're a big reputable, so.
No, they're a very good company, yeah.
So perhaps if I could just state it, it doesn't hurt to bounce back what Matt knows what we ultimately look for when we're looking for something to offset the variance that you're asking for. So it doesn't hurt to go back and forth if you have something, because I think you heard what we were generally thinking about how we feel about grass in that area. Great in the front yard, not so great in the backyard. But there's other things that can be done that won't make it, so you can't see what you paid so much for, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need the whole area to be grass. It'd be nice, I mean, like you said.
Sorry, we're gonna have you go back to the mic.
look to
It's
the
not gonna
left.
show up on the recording later.
You look to the left, you look to the right, everyone in the whole neighborhood has beautiful yards, and mine is, it's a dump.
It'll be nice, I can tell.
So we're open to do what, as long as it doesn't kill us financially, because this has already been killing us financially, but it's, we want to make it right. That's why, we had Matt come down when we first moved in, and then I called him up on Monday and said, hey, the snow's gone, come down and take a look at it. We're not hiding anything, we just want to make it look like a decent yard without affecting the bay. I grew up in Priscilla Beach, so I get, the ocean and protecting the harbor, and I'm a boater now, kind of against my will, but, having that house, we kind of had to buy it.
Your landscaper may have ideas also on how to get those rugs out, and maybe a brief covering of chips or something, while grass grows,
Stabilizes or something.
so that doesn't wash.
Yeah, I know he's talking about putting the berm thing down and doing that to make sure stuff doesn't run off into the water.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
You might need more than that in that situation, and that's the tricky thing with, you see silt sock, and silt sock is great until you get, a big rainstorm. And then if you have a bunch of stuff there that's been made bare, and it doesn't matter if you've put down hydroseed or whatever it is, enough rain's gonna come and just scour all that stuff and dump it out in the ocean.
Yeah.
So you might need more if there's gonna be areas that are gonna be made bare for any time period. I mean, I guess the alternative to that is using sod for any area that's gonna be turfed. If there's gonna be a conversion to turf in some of those areas, then sod with like staples holding them in place might be a
Some of my concern is
Sufficient
just down close to the water. It's so much ledge, you can literally pick up part of the turf and there's rock there. And it's, it's
Yeah.
It's really shallow.
it's very, very thin layer down there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I don't think you have anything that's too terrible there. The question now, we discussed really quickly, what's the commission's feeling on these redevelopment things for something like this deck? Is that something that should be, and especially in this situation where I don't know that it was ever permitted in the first place? Like I said, it did show up on a COC
Right.
plan in 2024, was it 24? I think, and was not discussed. It may have been
It was
discussed,
on,
actually, should
it
look
was
back
on the
at my notes.
COC plan.
But it was on the COC plan, and,
Is there a way that we
right,
could
but it wasn't on the
specify the
2012.
size, like existing, whatever?
Yeah.
It's 10 by 10.
So
Asking
that way,
for it to
yeah.
be printed on
On
so
the
that
plan.
the record, so we know if there's an increase
An
at some point.
expansion.
We
Yeah,
want to
going
see the
forward,
actual
right.
footprint.
So can we write like, whatever the size, 8x8, or I can't tell what size, it says
It's 10 by
deck
12.
frame, but could we write whatever the
label
size
it.
is, deck frame?
Yeah, let's get rid of the frame because that's not
Just, yeah.
indicative of what it is, but if it's 10 by 10, 8 by 8, whatever it is, just put
Specify that,
dimensions on it.
yeah.
I can do that.
The,
I think on this particular one, I might, and if this is a hardship on some timeline, let me know, but I would probably recommend a month of continuance on this one, and I don't know if you all heard, but
A month?
our next meeting is gonna be quite long. So you could say that we get it on the March 25th meeting, but we would need this information back in 1 week from now. So we'd need all of this information to be in my office next Wednesday in order for me to be able to review and get them the information in enough time before the next
Will
meeting.
we get a detailed list from you in terms of exactly what you're looking for? or-
Eric takes care of that.
Yeah, Eric should be writing notes.
Okay.
I have an idea of what you guys are looking for, and I think if I can get in touch with the landscape architect working on the site, I could put something on the plan with the recommendations I heard here today, and work with Matt with really nail down the species and what he's looking for. So I think it's all realistic requests.
You mentioned conservation posts with that mitigation plan?
I mean, it depends on what they come up with for mitigation. If they're showing, and I should specify that, and I think I did in the staff report, but if you're showing mitigation, if you're showing plantings as mitigation, like buffer zone plantings, mitigation plantings, they should include conservation
Yes,
posts.
okay, just want to make that
Because
clear.
otherwise, it's just landscaping.
Yep.
And anybody can go through and mow it down at any point, and
I think that's what the problem was on the old COC, it didn't say anything about conservation, it just said a perennial garden.
yeah, because I think at one
That's-
point, that was true.
That was their mitigation, I bet, I don't know, but it was just strange that there was no posts. So that way, when it changed hands, they didn't know that that was on the COC, and that way, it was just cleared. I would assume that's what happened, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But this will clear up any confusion.
The post just protects it going forward, whether you continue to
Right.
own it or not.
Right.
Any further comments from the commissioners on their review? Matt, did we address all the questions that you had to help facilitate the next round?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
All right.
Eric, do you have any questions for us?
No, you answered all my questions.
All right, so 1 month, do you know the
Sounds like they want to do the next one, March
So in
25th.
2
Okay.
weeks?
Oh, is that what he said? He said he
Yeah.
could get it done in a week?
Yeah.
He's hoping to.
Did you say you could get that done in a week?
If we get in contact with the landscape architect, yeah, I can get on it, by the end of the week, but, I'll need some coordination definitely with you and with Matt, so as long as that's doable.
And we'll
The only
point
reason
out
why
that-
we had queued up the landscaper to be as early as possible in the season, so that it wouldn't be, all that stuff going on come summertime, so we were hoping to get that pushed.
All I want to do is state it, just so that you don't think we're bad people if we push you, right? If, we all have to read, and
Sure.
we need a week to do it, because people hand us stuff literally at the meeting and they want us to talk about it, and we say, no, I'm sorry. So just understand that we're all volunteers. Matt works, Georgiana works, but
Sure.
I need time to review, because if I didn't review it, I'm not going to talk about it.
Completely understand, yeah.
Okay, all right, so if, Eric, if you get to the point where it's 1 week from today and you don't have it in, just please request a continuance, so that
Right.
we're all clear.
Of course.
Okay.
Understood.
Does anybody have anything else, or perhaps
Oh,
a
we're good.
motion to continue
Mo-
to 3:25?
So I'll make that motion to continue to 3:25.
All right, so we have a
Second.
motion second by Megan, voice vote, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we'll continue to 3:25, thank you very much.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thanks for your time.
It's our, actually. Hopefully you guys can go home now.
Nope, not
There's
yet.
Soon.
more. But thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
What's
Reach
that?
out with any questions. if-
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
We appreciate that, of course.
So one more.
All right, Section E, 135 Indian Pond Road, map 86, lot 16, notice of intent. I will now continue a hearing for the notice of intent for the proposed construction of an addition to a single-family home with associated septic system upgrades within the 200-foot riverfront area to a perennial stream, and the 100-foot buffer zones to a BVW, and land bordering land subject to flooding at 135 Indian Pond Road. The applicant has requested a continuance. Matt, is a
kidding.
month?
Is that what they?
No,
Sorry.
it didn't say. so.
Left. They didn't.
When did that happen?
Yesterday verbally, and then today by email, pretty close to the meeting.
Well, we're pretty full on the 25th, so you want to go a month?
It's up to the commission.
Do I hear a motion to continue until the April 8th, I believe it is, meeting? Is that right? April 8th?
What is it, April
Yeah,
8th?
I need a motion.
I'll make that motion to
And a
continue
second,
to April
please?
8th.
Second?
All right, seconded by Dot. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we continue that 6-0 to April 8th.
Wow.
That's in section B, I believe.
You're not going to be here April 8th?
Continue everything to April 8th. All right. We had something we skipped. Meeting minutes, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. So we're going to review November 13th, 24 meeting minutes. Did everybody have a
Whoops.
chance? I'm sorry, what?
What?
No, it's just 2024 meeting minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Like,
2024.
No, you said it, it's just, I said whoops, because like, I don't know what happened there, I don't know how we didn't do, we just completely skipped the minutes and never did them.
That is
So-
to 2024?
Yeah,
Oh.
November 13th, 2024.
Yeah.
Wait, what? I'm thinking that I
The
need to actually
minutes.
go back
Yeah,
there.
Georgiana
Really
was
good.
digging through something and realized that we just apparently never did them, I don't know.
Was I even on the commission yet?
Yes, you were. There's your little.
Yeah.
It was the Shore Drive COC
That I was
minutes.
looking for, and
Wow.
then there were no minutes.
Interesting.
So do you want a motion to,
Jim Franklin was absent.
I was absent, right?
You were.
Okay, perfect. And then
Yeah, you
I'm gonna let you guys debate. Absent, yeah, good thing. All right, did everybody have a chance to review, and is there any edits needed, or perhaps is a motion to approve?
motion to approve the minutes of November 13th, 2024?
And do we have a
Second.
second by Megan? And then we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I oppose, 0, and I abstain. So 501.
I just noticed a typo.
Let's see.
They made a motion to cancel the November 27th, 2026 meeting, when that should be November 2024.
Okay, maybe we revote this with that.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with my, what do you call that?
Amendment.
Amendment, thank you.
Do we have, we have a motion to amend, do we have a second?
There was a typo in the minutes, so now I fixed the typo.
Oh, there was a typo?
Yep,
Okay, cool.
so that's all.
I missed it.
So we need a second?
Second.
All right, second, Marilyn, and voice vote, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain is 1. So,
And for the record, I told local scene that we were not going to have a Conservation Commission meeting the 2nd or the 4th Wednesday in November of 2026.
Oh, okay.
So you just kind of reminded me that we're actually going to cancel that meeting as well. It's just probably not on the same exact date.
Okay.
So we didn't want to run into the same situation we're into this past year
Months
where
from now.
we tried to have a
Yeah.
meeting and then it didn't work. So just so everybody knows, around Thanksgiving, don't worry about conservation meeting.
Okay.
all right, and we'll move on to the same meeting minutes for January 14th, 2026. I was absent during this one. Well, I mean, they were years apart, for the record. So, do I have a motion to approve or edits to be discussed? No edits? Do I have a motion to approve?
Make that motion.
All right, Megan, and a second by
Second.
Marilyn. Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 0, and I am 1 abstain. Those are approved. Updates, Mr. Pinella.
Yeah, I finally got my pesticide applicator license again. I let it lapse on some weird technicality of me not paying for the renewal and not knowing that. But I got that again, so that's cool. I think that allows us to do some invasive plant management projects that we can't afford to contract out. So that we're working towards getting the equipment and stuff to do some of that stuff in-house. CPC applications, we put in 2 applications. One was for the purchase of the Carrera property on Wapping Road, just under 4 acres, and one is for the conservation portion of a potential purchase on Maple Street. Both of those were voted favorably by CPC on last Thursday night, so now those will go for town meeting. Working on all of the specifics and trying to make both of those projects happen, because they're both very tentative. And then one final thing that's not on the agenda that I want to put on as a future action item, and maybe even on our next Concom agenda, is to extend the information receipt deadline for continuance. That might be a little controversial, especially based on what kind of just happened here, but right now our information receipt for new filings is 3 weeks, which is fine. Information receipt has typically been 1 week for continuance. We're on the 4-day work week now. We're not here on Fridays. In order to get information to the commission in advance of these meetings, we now have to come up with our staff reports and all of our information by the Thursday before the meeting. So, like taking, for instance, what just happened with that last filing, they now have until the 18th to get information to our office that we then have to review and, fix our staff report or whatever and have it up to you the next day on the 19th. It can, in some cases, be perfectly fine, so it's something that I think in certain instances, if we want to waive it, we can, but in general, I think the policy should be 2 weeks. Now, that will mean that your standard continuance is now a month, not 2 weeks, but there's a lot of situations where we continue for 2 weeks and in 2 weeks it's not
2
ready.
weeks, and then 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I
And
think.
I like getting away from that personally.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, the commission can make considerations for people if they have some sort of a hardship and they say, look, all we need to do is this one simple thing.
Right, if it's something
Can you
as
take this in
simple
1
as-
week?
right.
Then the answer can be yes, and we'll support that. But I think right now, it's difficult to process certain levels of information change in a short period of time.
And I think having a default position of, no, it's continued, is the right outward-facing response. However, you can always, I think there can be some discretion, but I do think that you need to heard the filings and the hearings as well as we can.
Yeah, I don't want to create a situation where there's like outrage and then it comes as blowback on our 4-day work week, because that's fantastic. That is definitely something that is going to help keep gainful employment here, but
I would say
think
that
it's
we should
worthwhile.
put it on an agenda so that we can say that we
Right.
discussed it in open
Yeah.
with
Yep.
notice.
I think we'll put it on the next one. All right, cool. That's all I got.
Does anybody else have anything that they want to discuss? Well, that was it, right? We checked them all off.
That's it.
Oh, they're talking travel.
Okay, so we'll do closing. Closing this.
Give closing remark?
The next meeting will be held March 25th, 2026, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 9:03. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we have Megan, seconded by Marilyn. Voice vote, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.